Hey, look who it is. I'm still alive. Maybe barely, but still, barely is better than not. And still walking. Again, barely, but it's better than not. It's been almost 2 months since I was forced off trail by my medical issues. And things have stabilized and haven't really improved, but turned out I was chock full of, sorry, I gotta adjust this here because I don't want to drop it. It's hot as hell, my hand's sweaty. But I was chock full of kidney stones. God damn it, I cannot hold on to this. Alright, hopefully that's better. Anyways, yeah, I know, nothing changes. Sorry. But they literally couldn't even give me a number. The message after the main test was that there were several, and it was, in caps, all caps. And so when we went in for the actual face-to-face meeting about it, the lady was like, well, there's too many to count. And most of them, as long as they don't get any bigger, we can work with them. A couple of them are going to be a real bitch to pass. But they're still up in my kidneys, so I just keep having blood in my urine now and then. But that was really not as big a concern. I mean, once I figured out what it was coming from, I didn't really care. But the issues with my chest and with losing basically any strength climbing up hills, it's basically been determined that the autonomic nervous system disorder that I have really screws up with my heart rate, and sometimes I sweat when I'm cold and shiver when I'm hot. Just basically all the basic stuff that your brain controls without you ever thinking about it. Yeah, I've had that for the last few years, kind of going crazy. I can eat and eat and eat and I lose weight, even if I'm not exercising, even if I'm eating garbage. I didn't lose any weight while I was on the trail, even though I was not making my daily calorie count, and I was burning probably 4,000 to 5,000 calories. So, as you can see, my whole system was going haywire, and still is. And it was like that before the hike, but it definitely got worse. Apparently, I can exercise every day. I can play ball. I can hike 10 or 15 miles here in Indiana. I'm sorry, I know my fingers are in the way, but you just got to live with it, or I'll drop the phone. Those are your two choices. But anyway, so that was, something that I apparently could manage in my day-to-day routine at home. But once I was doing long days of climbing mountains, and it was the extended extreme exertion, after a week or two, something switched, I guess, because it got bad. And pretty early on, actually, even before a week or two, probably by the third day, my chest was hurting. And by the end of that month, when I finally got off trail in Hot Springs and went to the hospital, initially they said I had pneumonia. And then it was determined that the scar tissue that's in my lungs from the lung condition I had between the age of 30 and 40, the scar tissue from that basically inflames really easily. And with everything else going on, with my nervous system going crazy and probably the kidney stones, well, actually it seems like the kidney stones might be caused by the nervous system issues, because your autonomic nervous system can even control the balance of the fluids in your system. So if you've got a certain pH and the body releases, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but basically releases various hormones or chemicals or whatever to kind of keep everything balanced. Well, all that's controlled by the autonomic nervous system. So the more I hiked, the more out of whack that got. So I might have had one or two tiny ass kidney stones. I am 47, so that's not out of line. But the hike apparently multiplied them, as well as inflamed the scar tissue in my lungs. So at this point, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do a single serving through hike It's looking like I might have to do section hikes with a lot of time in between, which really pisses me off. You know, I don't judge how other people hike, but I've always had sort of a purist mentality about through hiking for myself, where I wanted to do the whole thing in one long go, only stopping to pick up supplies and getting back on trail. And I don't think my body's going to do that. I just started exercising regularly again, semi-regularly, but now it's going to be more regular. And while I'm not going to be doing like hiking videos, because if you watch my training videos, you've seen all there is to see around this part of Indiana. And you know, I might go camping in like better wilderness areas outside of our county, but right now, honestly, it kind of depresses me to be in the woods. It's been almost 2 months, which is almost twice as long as how much time I spent in the woods on the trail, but I'm still very raw about it. I feel really depressed. I don't know, there's kind of a sense of failure. I didn't really fuck up. It's kind of out of my control. You know, my stepdad, who I'm sure he meant well, sent me a text just after I got off the hospital. I just got off the trail and got out of the hospital and finally got home. And his text was, you know, I heard you quit. It was too hard for you. Something to that effect. And I didn't respond. But my first thought was, see, he's like a chef. Like, he knows how to really cook. He's worked in restaurants years and years ago. And I wanted to say, you know, if you're in the middle of this really fancy-ass meal and your stove breaks, did the meal fail because you're just not up to cooking well? Did you fail? Was it too hard for you? But I know that he didn't mean it that way. He just doesn't always think about how things are taken by others. And, you know, most of my life I've probably had the same problem, but in different ways. I can be really harsh. And so, whatever. I didn't respond because I didn't want to say anything mean. But I, you know, part of me does feel like I did fail. Like it was too hard. You know what? It wasn't. But I can't change how I feel. So, I'm still dealing with that right now. And I just got done playing ball for about an hour and a half. That's about the third time I've touched a basketball since I've been home. Had to get a new one. Because if you've watched the videos, you know the first one was killed by the feds when they searched my bag in the airport. And I didn't find out about it till the end of Georgia, when I was ready to tick off Georgia as the first state that I played basketball in. But, so I had to buy a new ball. Played ball today at the Y. Did pretty well. I mean, the first time I actually hit my first 5 shots in a row, that was a couple weeks ago. And was just kind of like, wow, this is crazy because I'm completely out of it. Just go. Sorry, there's traffic. And, yeah, that guy was nice. And then everyone else honked at him, apparently, because not everyone can be nice. But I'm not sure if you can hear me over the traffic noise. But, you know, the ball's coming back. The hiking's coming back. I'm not even sure if I can be on the screen right now because the sun's so bright I can't see my screen. But I'm still going here. And I'm starting to think about making videos kind of about a totally different subject. God damn, the traffic is just sparse enough that I could maybe run if I want to risk it. I don't need you to witness my death, so here we go. Woo! All right. They actually slowed down, so that was unnecessary. But I hope you had fun. I know I did. But I was thinking about one of the things I liked when I was doing videos on the trail was just talking about various moments in my life and how they popped up into my mind. And, you know, since I came home, honestly, I kind of buried myself in TV for a little while. Not mindless channel surfing, but, you know, picking out a favorite show and watching it and not thinking about anything. And putting on music and listening to it while I do chores and not thinking about anything. And it kind of occurred to me that I've basically lived my whole life through pop culture. Like, I'm a huge music addict, huge television and movies addict, and sports. I mean, I can kind of tell the history of nearly 50 years by just the shows I've watched and the music I've listened to, the movies I've seen, sporting events I've witnessed on TV and in person. And I just thought that would be an interesting structure for kind of like a history podcast, or I guess vlogcast, I don't know what you would call it on YouTube, but kind of my history and the history of basically the last Gen Xers. You know, I'm the last few years of Gen X before the millennials took over. I would say blech, but my wife is a millennial, so in her regard, woo! In everyone else's regard, blah. I'm just kidding. If you're a millennial, no offense. Please don't unsubscribe. I have like 3 followers. That's it. If you leave, that's like a 33% decrease. That's right. I'm good at math. But anyway, so that's a thought. Just kind of going through the tides of television, movies, music, sports in my lifetime, even current events that happened. You know, I remember right now, Iran, as the Hoosiers here in Indiana call it, even though it's Iran. Whatever. I'm not going to go into that, but that's in the news. And some of my friends were talking about how they remembered being, 8 years old when the Iran-Contra thing happened. And it was all over the TV. And back then, a lot of people didn't have cable. So it was on the broadcast channels, and you just basically didn't get to watch TV unless you wanted to watch Iran-Contra hearings. So that's the kind of stuff that I would, kind of use in various anecdotes. So I don't know, it's just an idea that I'm tossing out there, and I would really like it if you would mention down in the comments if you think that's a dumb idea. I mean, I don't care, be as harsh as you want. I would rather somebody belittle my ideas before I start them and they turn out to be horrible than to, say, oh yeah, do whatever you want, and then have me turn out to be garbage. And chances are, depending on who you are and how you word it, if you tell me it's going to be garbage, I'll say fuck you, and then I'll make it amazing. So who knows? But if you find any interest in that, let me know. Otherwise, I don't know. I liked making really impromptu videos, but I think I'm going to start learning. I said with the hiking videos that I wasn't going to care about graphics and music and all that shit, and not even how to edit or do anything. But if I do anything on YouTube now, I think I'm going to learn it, because I've got time. I have the whole 5 months that I thought were going to be hiking. So let me know. I want to do something, because I think my cats are getting tired of me talking to them. And if you would like me to talk to you, maybe while I'm walking through the woods in Indiana, or the various anecdotes that I would mention throughout my life would be actually recorded. Like, I would go to the hospital that I was born at and walk around and tell you the absolute nightmare it must have been for my mother to give birth to a baby that had no throat, had no thumbs, wasn't going to live, all that stuff. I think I would go to all the different places, show you where I made my first basket after shooting baskets with casts on my arms for 1.5 years and never making a single one. But that kind of stuff, I've been all over the country, but I'm back where I was born. So I can do a lot of that. And in between, sprinkle in the various popular music of the day, what was going on, on Dallas or Golden Girls or whatever various TV shows were on at the time that I'm talking about for that particular episode. So I'm just rambling at this point, spitting out ideas, and hopefully you find some of them vaguely interesting enough to keep you from falling into a coma. And if you did, let me know. Otherwise, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Maybe find a cliff from which to fling myself. Not really. That's never going to happen. Hell, the trail almost tried to knock me off a mountain. It didn't work, so I'm still here, baby. Game on.